Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney. Welcome to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney. I have the pleasure of having Mr. Adam Carswell here. How are you doing, my brother?
Doing great, Austin. I love the elevator music you had going for me as we entered into the room. And I love your style, too. You know that. I was like, all right, so how are we doing this? We shoot from the hip? You're like, yep. So, guys, we just hit record. Like, this is how we do it. Here we go.
But I want to do something that's very important before we get started.
Okay.
Hi, Grandma.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I almost forgot. There we go.
Hi, Grandma. He always does that on all his videos. So here's the funny thing. This is what's funny. How many times I've been on your podcast, I've done lives with you. We've talked from time to time through text. I don't know what you do.
Oh, okay.
Like, so this is so much like I'm going to get to learn about you also. So what I like to do with my guests is I think I have an idea what you do, but I let my guests tell the story and start the story where they want to. So I'll let you run from there.
Sure. I thought you were going to start with the story of how we were going back and forth. And, you know, we've known each other for, it seems like a lot longer than it probably actually has been. And then you were like, wait, I haven't had you on my show yet.
No, that too. Here. That was a goof on my part too. Yes.
But no, I think it's funny that you asked this question. And I'll be honest, it tends to be a tough question for me to answer directly because I do work on a lot of different things. And I find a lot of fun. And like, I know there's always the narrative, like, you know, niche down, find your niche, do your one thing. Within all of my things, I do believe I have a one thing, which is webinar production. So we could talk about that a little bit today. But it's funny. I think when it all comes down to it, I've got this big marketing umbrella. And every company that I'm working with, that I'm associated with, not only an evangelist for, but working on projects behind the scenes, primarily at ASIM Capital and Concordia Realty. A big project really at Concordia Realty, we haven't even been operating under that umbrella recently, is libertyfund.io. We have a security token offering backed by retail real estate. First of its kind in North America and really the world. Excited to talk about that.
For anybody that doesn't understand what that is, what is that?
Yeah. In simple terms, and thank you for helping me take a step back because that goes to the story I was going to say. In simple terms, it's combining blockchain technology. So I don't really like to use Bitcoin as the example, but that's how people can understand like the type of technology. It's not like Bitcoin though, because it's backed by a real asset. So combining real estate with blockchain technology is really what Liberty Fund is. And I have I volunteer on Mondays. Actually, school's out right now, so. We'll wait for school to get back, but I coach the kids here in basketball and, you know, ages 10 through 15. And Buddy was like, what do you do? And I was like, man, how do I explain this to a 10-year-old? I'm like, I tell people how good stuff is.
because ultimately, you know, when I was at my lowest and I was trying to reinvent myself, when I became GM of a restaurant and it wound up, I've never told this story, but it's very, well, when you're in the business for 20 years, you know, how many shitty managers do you have? And you're like, dude, if they put me in charge, people would listen. Right. And long story short, they didn't listen. It was a fucking nightmare. And I was drinking excessively every day. And I had 15 days in a row where an employee didn't show up. It was a full on nightmare. And when I was rebuilding myself, I was listening to Gary Vee a lot at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you know, just a lot. Like Imagine Dragons at 4 a.m., like on the football field, like running, like just rebuilding my life. And he said something to me because I've always been not entertainer is not the word, but I've always been a character, to say the least, right? And he said that, you know, we have to step out from the veil of the corporate shell and become our own brands, right?
Absolutely.
And I resonated with that because, you know, ultimately, like if people can connect with you, if people can people connect with my story, right? My recovery story and stuff like that. But
Right.
but what people don't understand is and I said this on our mastermind video we just released.
Which
Everybody has a
congratulations. I've been
thank
seeing
you.
your work with that.
Thank
It's
you.
pretty awesome to see people coming together and also doing it in real life. I know that's
Yeah.
not really been a thing. I'm envious,
Yeah.
man. I'm
You know
envious.
what's crazy is somebody told me that was the like the only live event in Texas like all year. I was like, hell yeah. Well, it wasn't, but I
Right,
thank
right.
them. But ultimately, um, by sharing my story, it's empowered so many, and I think that's pretty much what you do for a living is share the company, the product story, right?
Mm.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a great way to put it. Another way that I do like to phrase it sometimes is, especially with working with Hunter Thompson at ASIM Capital, and then as I mentioned, Michael Flight at Liberty Fund, they're the leaders, and I kind of view myself as like a modern day apprentice. I'm right there at their side in everything that we do, at least as best as I can. I'm fielding the projects that they could do, but their time is better spent elsewhere. And so yeah, to validate what you said for sure. And then another way to put it would be modern day apprentice.
Okay. And I love this because, we dream a lot, right? And we write down our goals and we manifest. And so, what I'm manifesting right now, this is a perfect episode for me. My assistant is manifesting it. I'm manifesting it. Everybody's manifesting. We need somebody in the company for marketing. like, I'm doing the best that I can. I truly, and I know you feel the same way. And guys, I don't give a shit if you don't care about ClickFunnels. I think the Expert Secrets and Traffic Secrets are some of the most important books I've read for if you look at it from the right lens. I don't need the ClickFunnels, but I understand the building of a brand and telling the story, right? And it really got me to focus in on how to create traffic towards me. And now I know that's the space you live in and study and love. And, just for anybody that's a lot of the guys that I coach or a lot of the people that listen to my podcast are brand new investors or agents. What are your tips to them to get started? Does everybody need to have a YouTube channel? Does everybody need to have a podcast? There's so many information. There's so much information out there.
I love this question because I think the answer is actually a lot more simple than we think. And getting started, it's like, oh, I got to go do all these things. Here it is, guys. And this is coming to you straight from Austin, Texas, basically. Gary Keller, the author of The One Thing. Identify your one thing. I mean, I just had someone on my show yesterday. Now his interview is not going to go live for a little while. His name's Spencer Hilligoss. I encourage everyone to just research him right now too. It's madisoninvesting.co is his website. And he really hammered home. Now we talked about different social platforms, but he was like, you know what? People say you got to be on all these different platforms doing all these different things. He's like, I'm confident that if I wanted to just stay on LinkedIn and just only use LinkedIn for the rest of my career as a business owner, I would be just fine. And looking at like his reach and how he's grown over the past year on LinkedIn, I'm like, whoa, all of his target customers and audience are there. And it was just like, yeah, that's a very profound statement. You only really need to become a specialist in one avenue. You can just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Or once you kind of master it, then as we always hear, once you master the one thing, then you can kind of start branching out. So my biggest advice is like, just pick that one avenue that you want to have your voice on and stick to it.
And I think one of the biggest things that people don't pay attention to, because call me a psychology major or call me whatever you want, but I study, and once again, Gary V, I study the comments. I don't study the post. And, the comments, I reply to everybody. If I missed you once, I'm sorry. You were the one person I missed.
You're good at that.
Yeah.
There will be a day, I think, where you might not be able to once you become.
I'll have an assistant for that. Trust me, and I'll still look at it. But ultimately, like consumer behavior, and this is something I don't think people understand about, is that you don't understand why they're consuming said platform, right? I understand the dynamics behind the platform, and so I tailor my message. I'm not tailoring my videos, but I tailor my post a little different. Like I'm not going to do dumb stuff. Like when I do my fake character, Billy Bob Brown, I'm not going to do that on LinkedIn. It's not needed. It's professional business people raising money, agents, investors. But that works on Instagram, works on Facebook. And so you have to really understand what works for you. And then if it works for you, I guarantee you, if you put all your energy into something, you're going to get out what you want out of it.
Totally, totally. And that's why so I kind of teased here earlier in the conversation, really looking forward to 2021 because of next level webinars and this webinar production direction that I'm excited to go.
No, and I'm actually hosting one tonight. And one of the challenges that my friend gave to me, and I love him for it, because he has like 7 VAs. He runs like 4 businesses. I don't know how he gets everything done, but whatever, I digress. But he said, Austin, you talk about so many things that people don't understand how much of a master you are in certain areas. Whether that be, how money works, because I work private equity, how Airbnb works. And he says, I challenge you to go do 2 webinars a month and get tactical. Like talk about the furnishing, 5-page document you put together that lays out how much a lamp costs, so everybody knows, like people want to see that. But in my eyes, I think what we do sometimes in the marketing platform is we're so far removed from it that we don't see the vision of somebody starting out from zero.
Sure. And actually, before I forget, could you please introduce me to whoever that is that has 7 VAs? Because one webinar that I definitely want to do this year is around the topic of outsourcing. I think
what he does. He uses Loom, and he has a whole spreadsheet, literally of like 60 tasks, and he just farms it out. He watches them work for 30 minutes, and then he wakes up and all of his work's done.
I just think that it's so. I want to be the one to like. I'm sure people have already talked about it, and you can help me. But I want to be the one to be like, hey guys, the power of outsourcing is like, I think it's underrated right now. I don't think enough people are talking about how powerful outsourcing is and how much of a skill it is too. You have to know how to do it the right way. And I'm definitely not saying that I know how to do it the right way, but we got to start getting that message out. Cause I mean, there you go. That sounds amazing what that guy's doing.
Yeah. Because ultimately, where that lies in, right. And I think the reason we lost money in my Airbnb business is that I had this control thing where like I had to do this and when you lose money and you lose a significant amount of money, a lot of people would say it's not significant, but 26 grand for me was the first time I lost money in real estate, right? It makes you look at a lot of things. And what you realize is that ultimately my ego had me in a position in the company that I didn't really want to be in. And so my ego was fighting what I was good at, and the fight was going to be lost.
Speaking of Brunson, I don't know if he said this himself, but I've heard him talk in a conversation before about either him or someone he knows where they won't work with an individual unless they know that they've cycled, meaning like that they've had an ego check like what you went through. Otherwise, like the individual won't work with them. So you've cycled. Congratulations.
No, because ultimately you have a choice, right? In that moment to take what you learned from it and move. Because here's what's interesting about as you get older, things like that stick with you. Like if you lose $100 or $200, you're like, whatever. But that moment, right? And so I choose to shift it around because I had my ex-business partner on my podcast. And I said, you were the first men that I've ever been around that were successful, that were sober. So because of that company, I will be sober the rest of my life. And I don't give a fuck if I lost $100,000. You can't put a price tag on that. So I value and honor that relationship and that time and space.
Yeah. No, I recall you sharing that story before now too. And it's a very good one to highlight.
So if somebody is starting a business or they already have a business, what do you think the power of webinars are, and kind of walk us through the process of where you see the value in something like that?
I think the coolest thing with webinars is when you take a step back and look at how they're unique. You're speaking to 3 audiences when you're doing a production. So, and actually, I guess you could even say 4, because I just now realized this, but the entire marketing piece, the entire part leading up to a webinar, even if people don't attend it or don't register or whatever, you're still shooting out a message to your audience, like kind of showing you as an expert in something. So there's that piece. I just uncovered that. Thanks. And then now the other 3 that I've been kind of sharing with people recently is, one, you've got your live audience. So when you do go live, you've got whoever joins you there. That's great. Two, you've got your replay audience, which a lot of times incorporates the live audience because they want to go back and see anything they missed. So boom, there you go. You got the replay. And then three, this is probably our favorite part once we like get down to it, is now you do a 45-minute, hour-long webinar or whatever. Now you have so many bite-sized pieces that you can take from that hour-long clip to either make more offers, drive traffic, build up anticipation for the next webinar. And that's a whole nother reach. That's a whole nother audience, just doing it in those bite-sized pieces. So you can kind of do that with podcasts as well. But I think like the lights, camera, action, like boom, this is live piece of the webinar is really, to me, what I find most compelling, most exciting, most energizing. And I think that's what I just shared is really what differentiates it from the reach that any other type of presentation currently has in 2021 moving forward.
And so one of my big pushes for myself moving into the new year is to get tactical, right? So, there's so many CRMs, there's so many active campaigns, so many different ways. So if I didn't know much, and let's say I wanted to create 10 webinars next year on how to wholesale a property, let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
What actual platforms do I need? What information do I need to get that started if we were to go? You don't have to go full soup to nuts, but just kind of give me a brief overview of how to get started.
Yeah, I'd love to share like the getting started portion because that's still in a way where I'm at. And I just want to, the main thing is you don't really have to go spend a whole lot of money to do it. Because I think a lot of people, when they think webinars, like, okay, now I got to either download Webinar Ninja or Webinar Jam, or I got to pay for like the Zoom webinar feature, which honestly, like it's not cheap. I mean, at least compared to like the pro plan. I think the pro plan is like definitely less than $20 a month. But if you want to get like the webinar piece, it's like, I don't know. It's an additional $40 to $100 that if you're just getting started, you're like, what? Like, I'm not making any money on this. What? So just keeping that in mind, the cool thing is you can still do what I do, which is a webinar. Now it's actually run through a Zoom meeting. My plan allows for up to 100 people to join. Where again, kind of where we're at in this evolutionary phase of next level webinars, we're not really getting close to 100 participants per call yet. So it's like, cool. Like there's no real reason to get that next package or that next level until we get there. And the other thing is like when you do a recording, you still have the same control that you do when you do Zoom webinars, but you can, again, use Zoom meetings. Just make sure you turn all the cameras off, mute all the mics. You can make it so no one can unmute their mic if you're in control of a meeting. And then when you do the replay, this is the only thing I say, I guess I'd recommend to anyone to pay attention to. So if you're going to do one, Austin, is make sure when you record that you are recording like the speaker only view, not like the gallery view. Again, I guess that doesn't matter entirely, but I've just noticed if you want the replay to look like a webinar that was done with Zoom webinar, you're going to want just the speaker one at a time instead of like the whole gallery. I've made that mistake where I accidentally recorded a gallery. And so, yeah, that's just why
that's worth the price of admission right there. You just saved me. Yeah, that's a big deal. Now, the ones I'm doing for my private Facebook group are a little more chillax, so people can ask questions and stuff.
I just remember this too. This is another reason why you don't have to go all out unless if you do have the capital aside to get Zoom webinar. I do recommend it because there are a few other features that come with it that make things a little bit easier. But I just remembered you can go live on YouTube and Facebook, and there's no limit to the amount of people that can join in on your presentation. You go Zoom meeting and then you just transfer it over to Facebook. I've done that with you before. We could have 1 million viewers live on a Zoom Pro account if you think about it. So
no, that's awesome. And so the next question is, do you need an offer at the end of it, whether it be free or paid?
This is an interesting question. And the answer is yes. No matter what, I would say you have to have an offer. And what I mean by offer is some type of call to action. Because again, to be upfront where I'm at in my business, like I don't have a book yet. I don't have a master class. I've got all different types of resources. As I mentioned at ASIM, like I would love to drive traffic to the programs that we teach there and drive people to the libertyfund.io webpage. And hopefully they become investors with us one day. But as far as like an Adam Carswell product, I don't have it yet. So the best thing I can do is, and this is just a straight up example. And for anyone else out there who feels like they don't have a product yet, the least you can do is a call to action to make sure everyone subscribes to your channel, gets information for the next webinar, and basically just becomes a part of your ecosystem. Because I think really the cool thing is at least I know I'm building up an email list and a following. So that way, when the Adam Carswell book finally comes out, I'll actually have someone who wants to buy it. So, yeah, that's, I don't know if that was kind of a roundabout answer, but the main thing is you do always want to have some type of call to action at the end. Otherwise, I would say if you don't have any type of call to action at the end of any production that you do, it's an amateur mistake. I notice that now when I see people doing shows and stuff and they're not making any type of call to action or anything at the end. I used to be like that. Sometimes I was like, all right, guys, see you later. It's like, wait, no, you didn't tell anyone to do anything. Like, that's just a professional move. So,
and I think what's important, and I think this is the number one thing when it comes to podcasts, because you have a podcast, I have a podcast, I do Facebook Lives, I do all these things. I think there's a limiting belief, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it, where you think people won't want to be interviewed on your podcast, or you think that nobody will show up to the webinar, or all these things. And guess what? There might be some scenarios where you only have 2 or 3 people on the webinar. It happens. But ultimately, like, have you found, because I know that I have found, it's a lot more easier when you approach it from a position of, I'm giving said person a platform to share their story.
Sure.
And when you come at it that way, instead of, hey, I need you on my show, like, they seem to be pretty inclined to say yes.
Yeah, you always want to have that value add approach and like let them, you want to highlight the individual that's coming into your circle, rule of reciprocity, that they are Michael Jordan or whatever you want to call them. Like, you have to treat all of your guests as if that's who they are. In who knows, maybe they actually are that elite. The cool thing about the webinar production is I'm so happy you brought this up, because I've had webinars where we've had, including me and the 2 people presenting, like 6 or 7 people on the whole call. This is the secret though. This is what you do, because you're recording, you got everything, you got your ducks, you got everything lined up. You make sure that you have some preset questions just in case that scenario happens. Whoever the host is can then be like, hey, we had some questions come in. You can either say during the presentation, or you can say in advance, like, let's go through these. And then by the time you're done recording and you put the replay up, for all anyone knows watching the replay, you didn't have 2 people there, you had 2 million. Like, there's no way you can tell that watching a replay. And so that's also the essence of, like, don't worry about who's going to show up to your webinar. If you're doing it the right way, and you at least have that a little bit of confidence there, you're like, oh, don't say anything on the replay. Like, oh, hey, we got 2 people here. Like, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. Well, I think something is interesting. I want to ask you, because I know you have a different take on it and you handle the marketing space. I found that ultimately, there's a massive amount of content out there, would be an understatement, of just, in general, Snapchat, Facebook, podcasts. There's just so much crap out there. It's a fire hose on steroids. But not everybody's going to listen to everything you have. But the number one comment I get, the number one, is your consistency is on point. And so when you're posting or you're just getting started, don't you believe that ultimately the compound effect of the consistency is the actual secret weapon when it comes to marketing?
It is. It's true, and I believe that, but I never thought of phrasing it as the secret weapon. It totally is. And I'm going to reference another Brunson case study. I wish I had the link at my fingertips. If you look through go to the Marketing Secrets podcast, guys, I'd say within the past couple months, you joke with me about this, like, oh, you're always making references. Within the past couple months, you'll see one that says 365-day case study. You might even be able to just Google it. And I'm going to emphasize this. If you're in front of a computer right now, listen to me, please. Just go on your URL, type in Marketing Secrets podcast 365-day case study. Marketing Secrets Podcast 365-day case study. Boom. All right, cool. So the reason why I emphasize this is because Russell talks about a band or some type of musical group that performed a live show every day for 365 days in a row. And the story is kind of they started off, they had 5 people there, 10 people, then it went down, no one was there. But by the end of the year, because they were consistent, really, and the universe is like, okay, you're serious, you want this. By the end of the year, they've got thousands of people showing up daily to watch them perform. And what was the secret weapon? They showed up at the same time every day of the year and did their thing. Guys, that's it. That's the secret weapon.
Well, it's funny. They showed up for themselves ultimately.
Right. Well, I mean, that's like that was
Like
the
show up
passion.
in your own life,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
like you don't know the outcome. You don't know the thing. Like, okay, look, I haven't told many people because I don't want to get called out on this shit. But I don't care. So it is what it is. Do you know about 75 hard? Have you heard of this thing?
Oh, I see you post about it all the
Okay.
time. So
Okay. It doesn't matter. It's 2 workouts a day, $10, gallon of water, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So 75 days in a row. Okay.
$10.
No. 10 pages you read, a gallon of
Oh,
water,
oh,
you know, all that stuff.
oh, that's cool.
So yeah. So you know, it's not easy, but my lifestyle was pretty much that already. So, you know, I'm used to it. So this Sunday you're working, you get one workout all day, you know, no matter what the weather. You know, this morning I was walking in 30-degree weather, like it's
Right.
raining, it doesn't matter, right? So I thought to myself, because I'm 3 days away from being done,
Nice.
I thought to myself, what if I did this for 365 days straight? Like, like what if I read that many books? What if I cared about myself that much? What if I put in that much effort? How much farther along would I be a year from now when I turn 39 and into my 40s, right? And I think sometimes in life we don't realize that you know, buying into ourselves and that consistency of the small things that we do every day, and as my buddy would say, winning the day, and these small things in your business create these massive amounts of momentum. And ultimately, momentum in life and investing is the juice. Like when you can get rolling, that is it. And so I think that's the same way when it comes to marketing or posting or something like, or like there's a lot of people, like, as we say it down here in Texas, like posting and not paying attention to the data or not posting at a certain time. It's like pissing in the wind. What's the point? Like,
Right.
you know, you half of the reason that people market or like boost a post or pay for an ad is to get the data back. So then they have the data to go then take their data to the, you know, take their marketing to the next level. And I think a lot of people haphazardly post for a week and they're like, I got 2 likes. And it's like, that's not the point. Like the
Right.
point is to like to show up and be omnipresent, as they would say.
So true. I think that's got to be the number one discouraging factor. You know, I feel like I'm still living this out. Sometimes I'll put I'll put a post up on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever, and it gets a small amount of views based on what I'm expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there was a point in time where I would find that discouraging, but it goes to what you're saying is like, once you realize that's not what it's about, there you're again, you've now discovered the secret weapon.
Okay. And for you know, for your companies that you work for that are bigger brands, I know of Hunter. I have never met him. I don't know the other guy, but I'm sure they're massive brands, especially if you're doing something that nobody's ever done before. That's an understatement. What is their, and you can't share the company motto or theme, but what is their overall approach to business that you could lend some advice to anybody out there as an entrepreneur or starting, like, that has a brand that big or raising that much money? What are the things that they work on? You don't have to share any secrets or anything, but what are their overall view on stuff like that?
Yeah, I just want to preface the answer by saying the fact that we're doing this interview shooting from the hip, like that's a really good question to just be shooting from the hip. So nice.
They call me the question guy.
I will start with Hunter because I met Michael through Hunter. Both have just been the best working relationships I think I could have ever asked for. I did meet Hunter first. So I think the cool thing about Hunter's approach to business is, well, you know what? I don't know exactly where he gets this. I know he's really big on meditation, so I'm going to give some credit to meditation. I feel like this guy just sees into the future somehow, like in a way that I've never seen anyone else do it. And he's had experiences in his life and stories that validate this. Like even back to when he was in high school and college, like he was a poker. I think he was playing online poker, or at least when like poker was hot. And there was that time where like everyone was getting into it, and he got into it and did his thing. And then it like right before like law started cracking down on it. Like all I know is like there was something with online poker where like it got minimized compared to where it was at, and he kind of capitalized on it before that happened. Then Hunter has like, so secret about him, he used to be a DJ and he got into the electronic music DJing scene. Also, like looking back on it as a fan of electronic music, it didn't really become, I think it's a little bit more cool now. I don't feel like it really became cool until like around 2010. And then now it's just kind of kept going. So he got in around like that time up until maybe 3 or 4 years later, did his thing, made a name for himself, was successful, was ahead of the curve. He got into podcasting. He was ahead of the curve. There's something else that I can't think of right now is ahead of the curve. And also everyone just be on the lookout. Stay tuned to ASIM Capital stuff. Just like go to our website and get our mailing list, because there's something coming out soon that again is just like foresight, because there's no one's meeting this need in the industry yet, what we're about to unveil. And so I just give credit to meditation. I really think that's how he gets a lot of his ideas. And I've adopted that too. As for Michael cracks me up. I mean, both guys are just like so much fun to work with because we have very similar worldviews. I met Michael at Freedom Fest in Vegas when I was there with Hunter, which is like the world's largest gathering of free minds is the motto. It's like a big libertarian conference. I think I would go a step further, even to say like if I was going to identify as any type of political party, I'm actually an anarcho-capitalist, but we could talk about that later. But anyways, so like, it's amazing how when you have the same worldview as people, you guys just click. And so with Michael, I mean, we just crack so many jokes all the time, and like we don't have to worry about like, oh, like is someone going to think like I'm being like 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 you can just have a comfortable conversation, and then from there like you make progress. Michael's very in tune with also with what's trending. I mean, he's in his 50s and he's thinking like a millennial. Like with what we're doing, like our entire team at Liberty Fund is under the age of 35, except for him.
Sure.
And he's just putting all these pieces together. And I think his thing is like, I don't know how he does it. Like he's reading all the time. He's going to conferences all the time. He's listening to podcasts all the time. And I don't know how he does it, but that's like my main takeaways from both of them.
Well, what's interesting, right? And I don't need to call anybody out because I'm a nice guy. But it's not that I don't respect their business prowess. That's not where I'm going with this. But something that really I rail against in business and investing, real estate investing lately, is it's boring as fuck. I mean, it's like I'm dead serious. Like nobody has fun anymore. You know, we're trying to get to this fucking unit count, and we're wearing a suit, and we're stuffy as shit, and I'm over it. And ultimately, what that says to me is that you're not comfortable in who you are. Like you're not comfortable enough that you can move the needle being yourself. And one of the things I pride myself in is if I need to wear a suit, I can wear a suit. If I need to wear cowboy boots, I wear my Texas cowboy boots, because ultimately I'm comfortable in who I am. And you know, like one of the reasons I'm having the webinar tonight with the guy is like, he has tattoos all over his body, and he loves cigars and whiskey, and he sells $60 million pieces of real estate. Nice. Like he don't give a fuck. He said when I walk in the room, they just like laugh because they're all, you know, in their suits and they're all like polished and, you know, and he's like, fuck you. He's like, I'm from the streets, you know, and like, but what he's finding is that he's giving hope to a lot of kids in the LA area that maybe thought they were less of who they needed to be. And I want to say that again. Maybe they thought they were less of who they needed to be. And it takes somebody that looks like you and talks like you and maybe cusses a little bit to show you that if you're strong enough and you have enough will and you have enough discipline and knowledge and you're surrounded by the right people, that you can be anything you want to be. And when we start getting back to that as a society and we start embracing it, I think everybody's going to sleep a little bit better at night.
Yeah, dude, that is so there's so many pieces of truth to what you just said. I do want to lead by saying there is something about wearing a nice suit and just showing up and like,
oh yeah, baby. There's nothing better, baby. There's nothing
about that.
Don't get me wrong. true story. And you can come with me. So I worked with this guy back in the day who was the best dressed dude I've ever met in my entire life. He was a concierge at the hotel, nicest hotel in Texas. I'm not kidding you when I say this. This dude was dressed nice.
Okay.
And I found out a secret. So he's from Colombia, and down in Colombia they do handmade suits for like $40.
Oh wow.
So we're doing a mastermind down in Colombia just so I can go get some hand fitted suits.
There you go, dude. Nice. I'm gonna make a note of that. I've been to Colombia before, so when I go back, I'm gonna get a suit. That's great. So with that being said, I think the real masters of this world, if you want to say business or life, are the ones that you know who you are, you're comfortable in your own skin, but when you do have to be the guy in a suit, you can be the guy in a suit. When you do have the authority to show up as the guy in a t-shirt with 60 million ready to go, like there's a time for that. It's all about, like, I guess, reading the energy around you. And then the cool thing that you also reminded me of is there's a book, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Highly recommend it. Oh, yeah, you're reading. So here we go. Oh, I'm looking at mine right now. I can't reach it from here. Awesome. So, okay. So there's a piece.
I need to read that. I haven't picked it up yet.
Oh, heck yeah. Or as you would say, hell yeah. There's a piece in that book, and that's an example right there. Like, I normally do not swear at all in my stuff. It's just my style, but like, hey, I just said, hell yeah. Like, I'm not afraid. I'll do it. Right. So, 0 to 1 talks about how the master salesman has evolved over the years. And at one point within the past century, the master salesman was someone who showed up sharp in a suit, like just as we've been talking about. But we're getting now to a point where that look is evolving because people associate, for the most part, someone in a suit as like someone who's getting ready to make a sale to them. So people don't want to be approached by someone in a suit for a sale. You have to be more, if you're a true master salesman, you show up casual. You show up, like, you look at like some of the greatest people we have. I don't think maybe Elon Musk does every now and then wear a suit, but like, I'm sure he's rocking t-shirts. I'm sure Steve Jobs is rocking like a turtleneck. Like Zuckerberg is never, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm using bad examples. I just know that like the new master salesman is actually dressed in disguise, normally wearing like what you and I are wearing right now.
Well, 100%. And guys, I want to make something very clear to you. I used to work private equity. We used to do big development deals. I had a big meeting with a $22 million building. I was in loafers and, a button-down shirt and a jacket. And then somebody said, hey, I want you to come meet this guy. He has 1,000 acres down south. He's building homes. I said, give me 30 minutes. I'll be there. I showed up in cowboy boots and jeans and a fucking t-shirt. And he was like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Beaumont, blah, blah, blah. I'm not lying to them. I am both of those people. But if I showed up in a suit to him, he would be pissed off and he'd feel like I'm selling him something. But because I showed up just asking about his property, he was happy to do business with me. So, every time, like, it's my podcast, so I can do whatever I want. But I'm not out there dropping, F-bombs everywhere when I'm in a room like of 100 people and it's a mastermind meetup. Right. I read the room, and I'm louder when I need to be, quieter when I don't. But that's because I'm comfortable in who I am. And so ultimately, what I love about people that do business is ultimately they get to a point like, and I'll be honest with you, I just, my favorite person for this, and maybe he's a little egregious sometimes, but his name is Christopher Lochhead. He had a $4.5 billion exit with he's known as the, let's just say he's known as the Maverick in Silicon Valley of marketing. He has the #1 marketing podcast in the United States, probably the world, actually. But he is crazy. I mean, he is hilarious as shit. He says what he wants to. He says, like, all y'all do in Miracle Morning. He's like, I get up at 10 o'clock in the morning, slam a whiskey and still crush your, and like, he's just crazy as hell, and he thinks that business cards are stupid. He said, if you don't have a name in business, and that's on you, and so ultimately, but here's what my mentor did say after I heard his interview though. Yeah. He also has $4 billion, so he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
So sometimes in life you might have to play the game until you get to where you need to go. That doesn't mean you have to be fake. It just means that you have to understand and read the room. And if you can't read the room, you need somebody to read the room for you, because because it is what they say. first impressions do go a long way.
Yep. Got to read the room. For example, put this feeler out there too. I am, aside from like the educational production of webinars, I'm doing webinars for individuals that have deals. A lot of people out there have deals. They've never done a webinar before. So kind of walking you through that process and doing that experience. Just let you know out there, like if you're interested in doing a webinar deal or a deal webinar, yeah, that way with me, let me know. But for example, the group that I worked with today, the person who invited me, I'm friends with, and I know them well, but I knew that I was going to be working with some people who I've never met before. And so I was wearing a suit jacket earlier today. Like now I'm reading the room. I'm like, yo, I'm about to get on the call with Austin. Like, let's go. I'm gonna go back to like chill Adam. So
no, I love it. And something before we head out of here, because I want to respect your time, but something and talk to me about where this comes from, because you're always smiling. You're always having fun. I'm sure you have your down days like everybody else, but where does that attitude come from? How did you cultivate it, or is it just like who you've always been?
That's interesting. I do believe part of it is a gift, and that I have always been this way. I guess I'd have to give credit to my parents. I don't know what they did, but like they definitely raised us in a loving environment. I always like to just let people know, like, I grew up in a Christian household. That's why subliminally you kind of see a cross in my logo. As I've grown throughout the years, I've learned to find that, God exists everywhere. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. I think there's truth in every single religion. And so it'd be wrong to go and tell anyone like, hey, if you don't go this way, it's not like, nah, that's not how you live life. So I do believe God is real. And I think that no matter what happens in life, I've found like, honestly, man, you're a testament to this even more than I am. But like, there's so many times in life where I've hit the wall. I'm just like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I have no idea what to do right now. So please save me. And I think knowing that, like, I always have this safety net that's beyond my like scope of understanding is enough to like show up, smile, make friends. And,
well, I think you carry the trait that I carry, and I would say that it's the most important thing that people say about me. I actually had 3 people say it yesterday, is that they don't feel like when they speak to me, they get any judgment. Like, I respect it all. Like Buddhism, Christ, Baptist, like gay, purple, yellow. Maybe it's the way, because I grew up in the restaurant business and it was always kind of a bunch of ruffians, around, and it was some different people. But ultimately, we have disconnected from a place of this is my big rail right now. This is my big push. We have a lot of standards for how people should act and behave around us, but yet I don't think a lot of people carry the same standard for themselves.
Yeah, that is such a tough one to, I think, I'm grateful that that's what you see in both of us. It's tough because I beat myself up often thinking like, man, I just want to make sure whatever I'm doing that I'm not being that judgmental person, because I know what it feels like and I know how that can come across. And I think, like, I'll be straight up, like, I'm definitely guilty of judging people. But to hear you say that makes me feel good. And I think it comes down to awareness. I think the people who maybe do live life that way the most are the ones who like aren't in tune with like what's going on around them. So being aware of like just having, I don't know how to describe it, but just having that awareness. Again, I just want to say thank you for highlighting that. I guess that's like the secret is the awareness.
And just to give you an insight into the coaching world and just working so intimately with people and their struggles and their big problems, is that ultimately I think that the single greatest thing that people can do that can change their life is self-awareness. It's never perfect. You're never where you want to be, but the awareness to know that you have the opportunity to change it and do better is all that we're seeking.
Right. I think that's it. I would challenge you. Like, what is the one actionable thing anyone tuned in, like moving forward, what can they do to improve their self-awareness?
I got it. You want to know the thing that runs through every one of my coaching clients? Is they claim they love themselves when they truly don't. Every day when you wake up in the mirror, look at the person and know that he's great, and applaud your strengths and work on those, and move away from your weaknesses, and don't try to, because when you understand your strengths, then you understand the self-awareness of what you're good at. And then you put yourself in a position of positive instead of starting from behind.
Love it.
But I'll tell you right now, buddy, I read a lot, but I'm letting you know this right now. And I mean this, I can't mean this enough. This book right here, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, I think is the most important book I've ever read.
Wow.
Because my coach gave it to me. And the reason is what he's basically describing is that you can have outside motivation, and you can have Tony Robbins events, and you can do all these things. But the quiet conversations, subconsciously or consciously, that you're having, or you've been conditioned since you were a kid, don't do this, you can't do that, don't do that, are still in there. And this book teaches you how to reprogram your subconscious mind to create that internal motivation that can't be stopped. And there's an app. It's called Think Up. And you can record your own affirmations, and they'll play back to you with music. And what they're basically saying is that if you're a smoker, like you smoke cigarettes, you don't quit cigarettes cold turkey. You start 30 days in advance and tell yourself that you're healthy and you don't smoke.
Wow.
And then at one point you put a cigarette in your hand and go, I don't know why this is in my hand. I don't smoke. And so if you truly want to lose weight, you truly want to change your life, it starts with reprogramming your subconscious brain. And the synapses are in your brain, as you tell these things yourself, connect. And then it becomes a permanent thought.
I love that. What's the name of the app?
Think Up.
Think Up. All right. How are we doing for time? I think I don't have to go right away. But.
We're doing great. We're gonna bounce. But if people want to find out anything about you, what's the easiest way to get hold of you?
Okay, we did block out an hour. Cool. My bad.
No, it's good. No, we're good. We'll leave it at that.
Best way to follow up and get in touch with me would be to go to my website, carswell.io. It's actually under construction right now, but you should be able to work your way through it. No problem. I say that because when you go to the landing page, it'll probably be both myself and my brother, Paul, there. His business, he's reinventing his business right now. So it's going to go back to Adam Carswell. Anyways, you guys don't care about that. The main thing is just carswell.io. And then when you go there, all of my social media connections, like if you want to connect with me on any platform, you can do it. And then if you send a message through the website, it'll go directly to my email, and we can have a chat from there too.
So I was going to share something on recording, but I'm going to save it because it's going to be top secret, and I'll talk to you after the interview. But guys, if you like this episode, make sure you share it with your friends. We appreciate y'all listening so much. Man, I had such a good time. I love talking to you. I could go
Thanks,
forever.
Austin. Yeah, it's always good.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.